Hello students, how are you all? I hope you all are keeping good health and are being safe in this epidemic situation. In this video, we'll study the first chapter of geography, that is resources and development. This chapter, students, basically talks about the different resources which are available to us by our nature and how to manage them. What will be the ways that how we can manage these resources so that they are saved for our future use also. As looking to the mind map of this chapter, you will come to know that we'll study about the resources, classification of resources, development of resources, land resources, different types of soil and soil erosion and its conservation, and all the steps that are needed for planning. Student, as the name of the chapter is resources and development, firstly we'll focus on resources. So what basically resources? The definition is given in the starting of your chapter, that is everything available in our environment which can be used to satisfy our need. Means everything that is available to us by our environment and with which we are satisfying our need, and it's technologically accessible, means it's easily accessible, that with use of technology we can make that resource or natural resource, that raw resource, of our use, and it's economically feasible. Economically feasible means that it's easily, we are with the technology we are making that resource useful for us, and it's from that resource we can make profit. That is economically feasible. And next is culturally acceptable. Culturally acceptable, students, like if we are taking out any mineral or any ore, if it's below any worship place, any temple, and it's culturally acceptable, then it is termed as a resource. So these are the basic features, we can say that important features to be included when we are talking about a resource, that is technologically accessible, economically feasible, and culturally acceptable. If we are asked the features of resources, so these three are the features of resources. These resources are available to us in raw nature. So human, with its technology and institution, its effort, that bring that resource for our use in a proper way. As the table 1.2, which is classifying the resources into natural and human resources. Human resources are which the structures and institution which the human has made themselves, and the natural resources which are available to us by the environment, with our nature, that are divided into renewable and non-renewable. Renewable, which we can renew, and non-renewable, which cannot be renewed, like petrol, petrol and the fossil fuels, and renewable like wind, water, solar energy, wildlife, natural vegetation. These are all the classification of resources. Now the first main topic of this chapter is the classification of resources. They are dividing resources on the different basis. The broad categories are like the basis of origin, on the basis of exhaustibility, on the basis of ownership, on the basis of status of development. Now we'll talk about these classification in broad manner. Now student, the first broad category is on the basis of origin, and on the basis of origin it is further divided into two parts. First is biotic, and it's from the word it's clear, it's biotic is the living, that is that these are obtained from biosphere and have life, such as human beings, flora, fauna, fisheries, livestock, etc. come under biotic resources. And the other part is abiotic resources, which is coming from non-living. All those things which are composed of non-living things are called abiotic resources. For example, rocks, minerals, wind, sunlight, these all comes under the category of abiotic resources. Now students, talking about the other criteria, that is on the basis of exhaustibility, means on the basis of use. Exhaustibility means on the basis of use, and it's divided into two parts, that is renewable and non-renewable. Renewable resources, the resources which can be renewed or reproduced by physical, chemical, or mechanical process, are known as renewable resources. Means we can create it again. For example, solar energy, wind energy, water, forest, and wildlife, etc. are renewable resources. Now talking about non-renewable resources, students, the resources once consumed cannot be replaced are known as non-renewable resources. For example, oil or coal or petrol, we cannot use anything else for that resource. So, and moreover, non-renewable, as they are, it take million of years in the formation. For if they are finished, what will do for that million of years, the time it will take to reproduce, right? So every time that's why we say that we should use sustainably these non-renewable resources, so that they are used for kept for future use also. Now students, next is on the basis of ownership. On the basis of ownership, it is divided into four parts. First is individual resources, which in a layman language we can say that resources of yours, like the resources privately owned by individuals are called individual resources. For example, plot, houses, etc. Owned by a person means it is particularly owned by a person. So next is community owned resources. From the word community, you are known as community, it's used by the community. The resources which are accessible to all the members of the community. For example, public parks, picnic spots owned by community. For example, students, the ones who are living in towns, you must be having parks inside your community, means that is accessible to every member of that community. You cannot say that no one can say that this is my private property. It is accessible by every member of that community. Next is the national resources, national country in resources of, if we are talking about particular about India, means the resources of India. The resources which come under nation are known as natural resources. Technically all the resources belong to the nation, means all the resources that are belong to the nation are called natural resources. For example, the resources which are available in the ocean, for that 19.2 kilometer ocean from the core side, means from the where the land ends and the ocean start, 19.2 kilometer ocean is of the nation. Like if India is having the boundaries and the ocean starts, then means the 19.2 kilometer area, the resources will be of India. Other example is the highways that are connecting every state. It's the national resources. Next is international resources. International means the resources of internationally owned. The resources lying beyond 200 kilometers of exclusive economic zone, means that are lying to, if it's from Indian boundary, ocean starts from there 200 kilometers, they comes under the international resources, and no one can use these resources without the permission of international institution. Means the resources which are available after 200 kilometers, these resources can be used internationally with the permission. But the resources which are available from 19.2 to 200 kilometer, that can be, like if we talk about India, that can be used by India with taking the prior proper permissions. We can use that resources. Means the resources which are coming under 19.2 kilometer, that belong to India only. We can use it, we don't need any permission, we own them under national resources. Next is on the basis of status of development. On the basis of status of development, these resources are categorized under four parts. First is the potential resources, which we can say that the resources which are found in a region but have not been utilized. For example, the regions Rajasthan and Gujarat have enormous potentials for development of wind and solar energy. Means you can say that in Rajasthan it's a windy region, right? And they have plenty of solar energy which can be made from that, but they are not properly used. They are not properly used by that state. Next is the developed resources, which we say that the resources which are surveyed and their quality and quantity have been determined for utilization. Like the fossil fuels, we have done the surveys that this can be used and we are using it. Next is the stock resources, the resources that have been surveyed but cannot be used due to lack of technology. Means we are having that resources but we are not having that technology, that it's not easy to use that raw resource for our need, for satisfying our needs. For example, water is compound of two inflammable gases, as you know, that hydrogen and oxygen, which can be used as a rich source of energy, but we do not have any technical know-how to use them. But we cannot use that hydrogen for making any other resource. Next is reserves. Reserves, you are known from the name itself that it is kept reserved. The resources that have been surveyed and we can use them with present technology, but their use has not started, as are known as reserve. For example, the water in the dams, for these are reserved, means that are kept for other situation, for future itself. The difference between stocks and resources is that in stocks we are not having the technology, but in reserves we are having technology. We are not using that resource, we are keeping it reserved. Means we are having other resources which are being used, but we are keeping that resources as reserved. Now students, now talking about the other main topic is development of resources, or we can say that resources development and planning. These resources are vital for human survival, and we are using it unevenly without any thought that it can be saved for future. We are using it without any sense or proper sense. We can say that without any intelligence we are using it. It was believed that these resources are free gift of nature, so human beings used them indiscriminately, and this has led to the following major problems. Means without any giving a thought we are using it, and this has led to many problems like depletion of resources for satisfying the greed of few individuals. Means for satisfying the greed of big businessmen, big entrepreneurs, they are misusing the resources for their own factories, for their own industries. They are using that resources at large scale. Another is accumulation of resources in few hands, which divides the society into rich and poor, which means that the resources are, if for example if there is an 80% resource and the population, if there is there is 80 resource and there is 80 population, right, that 70% resource is used by the 10% people, then the 10% resource is used by the 70% people. That is in uneven distribution of resources. Next is indiscriminate exploitation of resources has led to global ecological crisis, like you are known to them: global warming, ozone layer depletion, environmental pollution, and land degradation. These have led the resources to downside, depletion of the resources. Now we have always, when we talk about anything, we also give steps how can we protect them. Now talking about the steps, we can say that we should identifying an inventory of resources across the region of country. Mean we should check the availability, and this involves surveying, mapping, and qualitative and quantitative estimation and measurement of the resources. That we should check, measure, and estimate that how much resource we can use, how it can be used. Next is evolving a planning structure endowed with appropriate technology, skill, and institutional setup for implementing resources development plans. We should work according to the plans made, so that the resources which are taken out, it should be systematically taken out. Next is matching the resource development plans with overall national development plans. Means that resources should be made for the use of whole nation, means for all people, not for some people. Now the need of the hour is sustainable development. Means the resources should be used in such a way that it should be not come to an end, it should be saved for the future use only, and they are used wisely also. They are used wisely also, so that these resources are protected, and environment is also protected with the sustainable use, proper use, intelligent use of these resources. So student, this was the first topics of the chapter related to resources, how resources are classified, how their degradation is being developed, how the planning should be done.